Marc-Alexis Côté, the executive producer for the Assassin's Creed franchise at Ubisoft, has declared that the company's main goal with making its video games is indeed to, quote, change the world. And they believe that they can change the world by, quote, changing people. Roll this up over at fandompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. This is where you will find all of my journalistic efforts moving forward. I'm doing this full time. I would encourage you to become a subscriber over there and to become a paid subscriber so we can bring this excellent content to you and make you aware of what is happening at these video game companies such as Ubisoft. So in a keynote interview at XDS24, Côté revealed that the first question that Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot always asks is, what will players learn? He then explained why he asks this question. What I think has driven Yves for 36, 37 years now is that this idea that video games can change the world. And you start changing the world by changing people. And if you give them something to think about, even while they're having fun, right? If they can learn something, then you can change one person, you can change the world. So we'll get into how exactly they are trying to change people. It is not for the better. They are literally trying to sow dissension, chaos, and division throughout the world. And we see this in the video games that they are making now and what is plastered all over their website. But before we get to that, let's continue here with this interview. He was then asked a question about how he keeps the traditional Assassin's Creed fan base satisfied while also bringing in new players. The host basically brings up this conversation he had with a woman who says she does not know who Darth Vader is, does not care about Darth Vader, does not care about Luke Skywalker, does not care about Princess Leia, does not care about Lando Calrissian, does not actually care about Star Wars, only cares about The Mandalorian and everything that Disney has made since then. And she just is not interested in anything that came before. That's how this question is brought up. And Côté responds saying this: I have the chance to have what I call an evergreen franchise, and it's a great honor to be able to steward that because the playground that I have in front of me is the entirety of humanity history. So it's diverse, it can be inclusive. We can tell different stories that will have a pull for different people in different parts of the world, and we're not stuck telling the same story over and over again with the same heroes. So each time you pick up an Assassin's Creed game, I want you to learn something new, which is very important, but to discover another part of the world, another part of our shared history. One can only imagine what he's actually hoping that you will learn. I can only imagine that he's trying to teach Marxism, communism, etc., anything to sow dissension. And then obviously try to elevate maybe some other societies' absolutely terrible practices. I can only imagine that if they do a game set in the Aztecs, that you would actually be in favor of human sacrifice. That's where I think that this company is at now. It's absolutely despicable what they do. Anyways, let's continue. And that's what I like about Assassin's Creed, because it can feel always fresh, because in each game that you play, it's both a plus and a minus, because each time you can start fresh, but there's risk to starting fresh every time. You need to be building these protagonists so that they're engaging, so that people relate to them. And obviously, I've talked about this on a number of occasions. I always usually like to cite Brian Nemar. This is exactly what Hollywood did to basically lead our society down the slippery slope of degeneracy and deviancy. You create these protagonists that are relatable. You make people, viewers, players, etc., relate to these protagonists, and then you have them basically make decisions based on the pieties of the death cult. In this case, in what we've seen from Hollywood and a lot of these video game companies. So you're actively engaging in basically immoral behavior, but you're crouching it as something that is good, and the protagonist is just in doing all of this stuff. So you relate to this. You think that is how you should behave as well. Now, obviously, this doesn't take effect immediately. They do this. They've been doing this over the course of decades, potentially even centuries. And we're seeing the results of it, right? It leads to decline. It's absolutely despicable because people now don't even know what right and wrong is anymore. They have no sense of that for the most part. I mean, just look around at what we're seeing in our society. I mean, people think that infanticide is totally fine if you call it abortion. It's sick. But anyways, that's how they do this. And instead, we need to actually be creating stories that inspire people to look upward, to find that gleam of evangelium, as J.R.R. Tolkien likes to say. We need to be creating protagonists that are actually choosing the right things to do. They are operating by the actual Christian moral ethic, and that is what we should be moving forward. I doubt that Ubisoft will be doing that at all. Especially given the fact that they have you actively oppose the Pope and the Catholic Church in Assassin's Creed 2, as much as I like Ezio and Assassin's Creed 2. Anyways, speaking specifically to Assassin's Creed Shadows, Côté said this: I think that's one of the things people will notice starting with Shadows is that we've tried to make the franchise more welcoming by focusing differently on, and then he gets a little bit distracted and he kind of switches gears here, or maybe he caught himself. It's hard to tell. But he then says this: because Assassin's Creed is two stories at the same time. It's always been that way. You've got the present day, so the how you're going into the past as its own story, and you have the past itself. Obviously, they used to have Desmond. I guess they've introduced some new character. I really haven't been keeping up with Assassin's Creed really since Black Flag. I did play a little bit of Odyssey. I felt it was basically just a Skyrim clone with an Assassin's Creed skin on top of it. So it didn't really move past that game. Obviously, didn't play Origins or anything that came after. I think Origins came after that. So I haven't really played anything after that. Anyways, he goes on, but they've had this dual storytelling. I mean, it used to be Desmond, and they introduced some like female character. Clear agenda right there, right? Anyways, they go on and say, so we've bundled those two stories very differently for Shadows that will allow us to have more flexibility into the future to make the franchise more welcoming, so we avoid the Star Wars issues like who's the dude with the black helmet. And that goes back to what I was talking about before, how this question was brought up, is this woman was asking this guy, like, who's the dude in the black helmet, clearly referring to Vader, and she doesn't care, doesn't know, doesn't want to know. I mean, just absurd. And so he says, and try to make it more about your own experience within the franchise. I mean, can you imagine Tolkien saying something like this about Lord of the Rings? It's just utterly absurd. Even George R.R. Martin, I don't think, would say anything like this about the Song of Ice, or what is it? Yeah, Song of Ice and Fire. It's just completely and utterly ridiculous. It's absurd on its face. Makes no sense. Anyways, these comments are not surprising, right? He made similar remarks in an interview with the New York Times. He said, we want people to be passionate about history. What does that mean? Stay true to well-documented moments and historical figures, but not shying away from having a critical point of view and defying cliches to go beyond what is the accepted truth. Go beyond what is the accepted truth. So they basically just want to let the past die, kill it if you have to, rewrite it in their communist, Marxist, woke image. Like, that's exactly what they want to do. He says it right here. And he's pretty much saying it here as well in this XDS24 keynote interview that he gave. And that's what these people are all about. They're all about this. And we know this because it's all over their website too. Because we have the VP of Global Diversity and Inclusion, Rashi Sika, making it clear that the company is attempting to inject the divisive and corrosive agendas of diversity and inclusion into its games. She writes this on the company's diversity, inclusion, and accessibility page of its website. You can read it right here. For Ubisoft, putting diversity and inclusion at the heart of everything we do means providing an environment where employees can thrive, building open-minded communities where players can connect, and creating games that reflect the diversity of the world we live in. So remember, he's just talking about how they want to stay true to history. Well, here's her saying, like, no, we need to actually reflect the diversity of the world we live in. So we're not really going to stay true to that history. And we see this with Shadows, right? They've got all the Chinese architecture in the game. The seasons are all messed up. They've declared that Yasuke is a samurai when he clearly wasn't. And many historians basically say he was just an entertainer and a bodyguard, was not a samurai at all. So you can see that they are literally trying to change history. They're trying to rewrite history and get people to believe this rewritten history through their video game. And they're using that rewritten history to push their political agenda, their ideological agenda, which is this degenerate, disgusting, sick, evil, destructive agenda that we like to call wokeness. And it has all these kind of tentacles: gender ideology, critical race theory, feminism, etc. They're all kind of inside wokeness, or part of wokeness. And Côté, or Sika, goes on and says, we will not accomplish all these goals overnight. Just as it takes years of iteration to develop a AAA title, we will only become a more diverse and inclusive company by continuously improving, trying new ideas, and learning from the results. It's a long-term commitment, one that we will tackle with the same passion and dedication that we bring to our games. And if you go further down the little diversity web page here, it specifically addresses content. And it says, we will create gaming experiences that push representation forward by embedding diversity and inclusion across our processes, increasing representation in our teams, and offering access to resources that help teams to build more authentic, inclusive, and accessible gaming experiences. So that's what they're doing. Côté is basically confirming all of this stuff, and they literally are doing this stuff so they can literally change the world to fit their woke vision. And they want to do this by changing at least one person with every single game that they make, at least here, according to Marc-Alexis Côté. It's just absolutely despicable what these people are doing. Fortunately, a lot of people have been waking up to this and are closing their wallets. There's a reason why they delayed this game. It's supposed to release this month. It will now release in February 14th, 2025. And we will see how well it does, because they're going to be releasing it on Steam the same day they release it on console. And hopefully we see similar results to what we're seeing with Dragon Age, the Veilguard, where that peak player count doesn't even get over 100,000, because it shows that that people are rejecting this sick, evil agenda that they are trying to push through their video games. They need to get back to creating fun entertainment that is trying to entertain, trying to create a game rather than trying to change the world, change their players. But those are my thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.